I went on a research trip last week in the Bermuda Triangle. I've been teaching marine biology for a few years, but this felt different. It was my chance to discover something amazing. The Ocean Explorer was old and creaky, but I was excited. The crew was a mix of seasoned sailors and newbies like me, all looking for answers. The first few days were normal. We took water samples and shared our findings. It was a lot of science and a little bit of fun. But things shifted on the second night. I woke up to flickering lights. The room was dim, shadows moving around me. I heard voices, hushed and nervous. I felt my heart racing. Slipping out of my cabin, I walked toward the sounds. The deck was eerily quiet except for the waves. 2 crew members were whispering about equipment failure. I stayed hidden, listening as they mentioned static on the radios, weird noises that made no sense. It felt wrong. The next day, I noticed something strange. The crew seemed different. Faces were tense. I saw Tom, a seasoned sailor, glaring at Sarah, one of the volunteers. They were arguing, but it felt bigger than just a simple fight. I avoided them because their anger clung to the air, making me uneasy. That night, the sea looked odd. There were glowing patches on the surface, moving in a way I couldn't explain. I wondered if they were bioluminescent creatures. Each flicker made my heart pound. I whispered to myself, trying to calm down and think of an explanation. But deep down, I feared they were something else. As the days dragged on, our navigation tools failed us. Our maps didn't help. Compasses spun wildly. The feeling of being lost sank into my chest. Some crew members stopped sleeping altogether. I jumped at every sound. My mind raced, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. On the last night, a thick fog rolled in. I stepped out onto the deck, looking for answers. Then, I saw shapes in the fog. They were huge and looming, just out of sight. I called out, feeling ridiculously foolish. No answer came back. My heart raced faster than I thought possible. As I stepped closer, a deep voice rolled from the fog. It wasn't one of the crew. I spun around, chill running down my spine. I sensed a change in the air. The lights flickered again, casting eerie shadows. I felt something nearby, watching me. Then, something brushed past me. I gasped. I turned quickly, but I was alone. The air felt heavy, like it was closing in on me. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. Panic surged as I stumbled backward. I didn't know what was happening. But I knew I wasn't alone anymore. That feeling still haunts me, even now. As I sit here, I can't shake the thought of what I encountered that last summer's night at sea. I wasn't meant to find answers, it seems. Just questions that linger in the dark. I woke up the next morning feeling different. My dreams were filled with shadows and whispers. It was still dark outside, but I felt an urgency in my bones. I couldn't shake the nagging sensation that something terrible had happened while I slept. Rubbing my eyes, I stumbled out of my cabin. My first instinct was to find Tom. If anyone had answers, it would be him. I found him on deck, staring out into the foggy ocean, his face pale and drawn. It seemed like he was battling his own thoughts. "Tom, what happened last night?" I asked cautiously, trying to gauge his reaction. He turned to me, his expression hardened. "You don't want to know," he said flatly. But I pressed on. "The others, they're acting strange. Have you seen Sarah?" He hesitated, glancing back toward the crew's quarters. "She hasn't been herself. None of us have." I felt a knot in my stomach. I wanted to understand but was scared of what that understanding might lead to. I suggested searching for Sarah together, and reluctantly, Tom agreed. As we walked through the dimly lit corridors, I noticed the tension hanging in the air. Crew members glanced away, avoiding eye contact, each lost in their own fears. Suddenly, we heard a crash from one of the storage rooms. I exchanged a look with Tom, fear etched in both our expressions. "Check it out," I whispered, my voice barely a breath. After a slow nod, we edged toward the door. I pushed it open, revealing a tangle of ropes and equipment strewn across the floor. But what caught my eye made my stomach twist. In the corner, glowing faintly, was a piece of twisted metal. I inched closer, adrenaline pushing me forward. "That wasn't there before," Tom muttered, backing away slightly. I picked it up, running my fingers over its surface. It was warm, almost pulsating. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. Just then, a figure appeared in the doorway. It was Sarah, her eyes wide with fear. "Get away from that!" she shouted, rushing in as if to snatch it from my hands. But I held it tighter, feeling like it was somehow connected to everything that had happened. "Why? What is this?" I demanded, my voice rising. She didn't respond. Instead, she looked at Tom, then down to the floor. Her breath was rapid. "We shouldn't have come here. We need to leave. Now." I looked between them, my heart pounding. "Leave? Where would we go? We're lost." Before either of them could answer, a sound echoed from outside, low and booming, like something from the deep sea itself. The entire ship shook, rattling its old bones. "What was that?" I yelled, panic surging. As I met Tom's gaze, I saw something flicker in his eyes. "It's coming for us," he whispered. That's when alarms blared, cutting through the chaos. The emergency lights flickered on, casting a red glow across the deck. I knew then that running wasn't an option anymore. We were in the middle of something we had no control over. With every heartbeat, the stakes amplified. The unknown loomed closer, and I felt a mix of dread and anticipation. This was only the beginning. The alarms blared deafeningly, drowning out my thoughts. I turned to Tom and Sarah, adrenaline stunning me into action. "We need to regroup. Find the others." As we made our way back through the darkened halls, the panic was palpable. Crew members moved like shadows, their faces ghostly in the emergency lights. Every door we passed felt threatening, each creak of the ship echoing like a warning. "Do you think it's really here?" I muttered, trying to keep my voice steady. Tom's jaw clenched. "I don't know. But we need to find everyone and get off this ship." Just then, we heard a shout come from the deck. It was Eric, one of the younger crew members. His face appeared wild, eyes wide and uncertain. It's coming. The thing." My heart dropped. "What thing?" Eric stumbled toward us, breathless. "I saw it. In the water. It was enormous." My mind raced. A part of me feared the worst, but a flicker of curiosity urged me to press for details. "What did it look like?" "I don't know," he exclaimed, panic breaking through. "Just a shadow. It moved under the ship." Shadows. The same shadows that haunted my dreams. "We have to go out there," I said, my voice wavering. "No way," Tom shot back. "We need to stay inside and keep the lights on." But something pushed me forward. I couldn't ignore the need to know, to confront whatever was lurking beneath the surface. We can't just hide. If it's really out there, we need to protect ourselves. Before Tom could respond, Sarah grabbed my arm. "Wait. You feel that?" I froze. The air shifted around us, pressure building like a storm. A low throbbing sound vibrated through the metal hull. It was almost rhythmic, a heartbeat of the ocean itself. We exchanged uneasy glances, and at that moment, the entire ship shuddered again, more violently this time. A sense of urgency grew heavier in the air, and I took a step toward the deck. "Let us find a way to the lifeboats," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the chaos. I nodded, and together we moved, leaving Eric and Tom behind momentarily. As we reached the ladder to the deck, another tremor ran through the ship, making it difficult to keep my grip. Suddenly, we heard a loud cracking sound. Right above us, something heavy seemed to shift. "Get down!" I yelled, ducking as bits of metal fell from an overhead structure. When the dust settled, I pushed forward, the adrenaline coursing through me. That's when I saw it. Something long and dark slipped from the shadows, cresting the waves beyond the ship. My heart raced as fear and wonder collided. "Did you see that?" Sarah breathed, eyes wide. I couldn't take my gaze off it, watching the creature emerge more fully. It was massive, glistening under the eerie lights. Its form was unlike anything I'd ever imagined, part sea beast, part something otherworldly. And just as I processed the sight, it let out a chilling call that resonated deep within my bones. Suddenly, I understood the urgency. We weren't just lost at sea, we were in the presence of something ancient and dangerous. I turned to Sarah, my voice shaking. "What do we do?" "Run!" she shouted, sensing the impending threat. As we backed away, I knew that whatever was out there wasn't finished with us yet. We had to find the others, and fast, because this was only the beginning of our nightmare. I pushed against the mounting fear and scanned the deck. The shadows lurked like they had a life of their own, waiting, watching. "We have to hurry," I urged Sarah. "Where do we go?" she asked, her voice wavering as she looked back at the waves crashing against the hull. "Toward the lifeboats, and then we get everyone else. Tom and Eric need to be with us." The idea of splitting up weighed heavily. I had no idea where Tom might be and couldn't shake the feeling that we were running out of time. We darted through the chaos on the deck, the alarms still blaring, their incessant wails a chaotic symphony of dread. I heard footsteps pounding behind us, and for an instant, I thought it was Tom and Eric, coming to join. But it was a small group of crew members, their faces twisted in terror as they rushed past us. "Wait!" I called out, but they were gone, disappearing into the darkness of the ship. Something in their eyes told me they were running from more than just the storm. A chill gripped my spine, and I instinctively turned back toward the water. The strange creature's form seemed to shift closer, rippling just beneath the surface, a deadly dancer in the dark. "Keep moving," Sarah insisted, pulling me away from the edge. We hit the entrance to the lifeboats. I struggled with the door, adrenaline making my hands tremble. Finally, it swung wide, but what we found inside was a shock. The boat was empty, but not just empty, it was wet, as if something had been there and had just left. "Where are they?" I whispered, my heart sinking. "They should be been here. Maybe they went for help," Sarah suggested, though I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. My eyes caught a glimmer of something on the floor, a fin, slick with salt water. My heart raced as I bent closer. It was part of a life vest. They didn't just leave. Something happened. At that moment, the ship trembled again, more violently than before. I grasped the edge of the boat for support. The low, throbbing sound vibrated deeper now, a menacing growl rising from the depths of the ocean. "Let's try calling for Tom and Eric." I pulled out my radio, hands shaking. "Hello? Can anyone hear us?" Silence. And then a crackling sound. "Ground control to Ahab." "Come in, Ahab," came a voice, broken and distorted. "Tom? Is that you?" I exclaimed, hope igniting. "Get off the ship. It's coming." The static crackled like thunder, sending shivers down my spine. "Where are you?" I shouted, then the line went dead. Sarah's face paled. "We have to go find them." As I turned back to the deck, a bone-chilling roar erupted from the water, echoing through the night. I could feel the creature's presence pulsing, thrumming, alive. The lifeboat rocked, and I stumbled backward. Glancing over my shoulder, I realized we weren't just running from a creature in the depths. No, something had broken the surface, dark and monstrous, and it was ready to unleash its fury. That I grabbed Sarah's wrist. "Now!" We fled, driven by the primal instinct of survival. But with each step, I could hear the water surging behind us, growing closer. Desperation clawed at my throat. And then, I dared to look back, and what I saw filled my chest with ice. The creature was rising, its massive bulk looming over us, casting a long shadow over the boat. The night held its breath as if the world itself were waiting for what would happen next. I turned back to the lifeboat, panic clouding my judgment. "We can't stay here," I shouted, but Sarah's wide eyes were fixed on the beast rising from the water. It towered over us, impossibly massive, its scales glimmering faintly in the dim moonlight like dark jewels. "Move!" she screamed, pulling me back as instinct kicked in. We stumbled down the deck, the sound of the ocean thrashing against the ship growing louder, more chaotic. My feet felt heavy, as if the very deck was trying to hold me back. As we ran, I glanced over my shoulder again and saw the creature crashing through the surface, its maw gaping wide, showing row upon row of glistening teeth. I had never seen anything like it. "Where's Tom?" I shouted, my voice barely rising above the din. "We'll find him. We just need to get to the others," Sarah yelled, her breath hitching as we rounded a corner. Chaos reigned. Passengers spilled from cabins, screaming and crying. I recognized a few faces, their expressions a mix of fear and confusion. "Get to the lifeboats," I shouted, trying to guide them. But they hesitated, terror freezing them in place. The beast let out a roar that shook the ship to its core. I could feel it in my bones, a profound understanding that whatever this thing was, it was hungry and it was angry. "Come on," I urged Sarah, but she pulled me closer. "We're not leaving without Tom and Eric," she insisted. Before I could protest, she led me towards the lower deck. "But it's dangerous down there," I stammered, doubt creeping in. "We'll be trapped up here," she shouted back. They could be below, hiding. I followed her lead, racing down the narrow staircase. The air was thick with moisture, the lights flickering amidst the chaos. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, but I couldn't just abandon them. As we reached the bottom, the lights went out completely. I stumbled and grabbed the wall for support. "Sarah," I whispered, the darkness swallowing me whole. "Here," she replied softly, panic edging her voice. I pulled out my flashlight, the beam piercing through the shadows just as something moved in the distance. My heart stopped. A figure darted past, and for a brief moment, I thought it was Tom or Eric, but it was too quick, too feral. "What was that?" Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Maybe it's one of the crew," I said, hesitant. Without a word, I pressed forward, feeling my way along the wall. The distant roar of the creature above echoed, but I could hear something else now, a low growl resonating from the darkness ahead. "Tom? Eric? Is someone there?" I called out, voice shaking with uncertainty. "Nothing. Just the eerie sound of the growl getting closer." Then I spotted a door slightly ajar at the end of the corridor. As I moved towards it, a figure emerged from the shadows. "Get back!" I shouted as the lights flickered to life, revealing a wild-eyed passenger, soaked and trembling. "I saw it," he gasped. "It's coming for us." Then everything went dark again, plunging us back into chaos. I felt the darkness press in, thick and suffocating. My flashlight flickered in and out, casting erratic beams across the corridor. Sarah grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in like a vice. "Echo," she whispered, fear lacing her tone. "Stay close," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. The growl grew louder as we edged back towards the door. Whatever was lurking in the shadows felt impossibly near. Then, suddenly, the lights surged back to life, bathing everything in stark, blinding light. The wild-eyed passenger stood there, trembling and soaked, his clothes clinging to him like a second skin. "We need to get to the lifeboats now," he insisted, eyes wide with panic. "Where are the others?" I asked, desperate for information. Tom, Eric? I don't know. They went the other way, he stammered before cutting off abruptly. Another roar echoed through the ship, powerful enough to rattle the walls. I could see the passenger's face pale. That thing will kill us if we don't move. I weighed my options. We could either stay with this guy or head towards the unknown. We need to find Tom and Eric first, I decided, glancing at Sarah for support. Are you crazy? We'll be trapped. She shot back, her eyes darting to the door, but just as I opened my mouth to argue, that low growl returned, louder and more menacing than before. It wasn't too far away. Then I noticed something faint scratches on the wall beside the door. They were deep, almost claw-like. We have to hurry. I whispered urgently. The wild-eyed man nodded hesitantly, then peeled away from us, rushing past the way we had come. My heart sank. Wait. Come back. But he was already fading into the darkness. I exchanged a worried glance with Sarah, then turned back to the corridor. We can't follow him. We have to find the others. As I moved forward, I could hear faint screams from above, but something in the air shifted. The growl morphed into something else hissing, like a snake, but deeper. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and for a second, everything was shadow. What is happening? Sarah's voice trembled as she felt around for something to hold. Maybe the generator, I began, but then the lights died completely again, plunging us into blackness. What was that noise? It felt like scuttling, something skimming across the floor. I aimed my flashlight downward just as something darted past my feet, too quick, too low for comfort. Sarah! I shouted, panicked. Did you see that? No. What was it? Stay right behind me. I ordered, though I felt a pulse of dread. Fear clung to me like damp clothes. I moved ahead, a new urgency in my steps. Then I saw it. A set of glowing eyes reflected in the dim beam of my flashlight. They were wide and unblinking. I froze. Sarah, before I could finish, a loud crash echoed from further down the corridor, like metal on metal. Something had burst into the hallway. In one swift motion, I grabbed Sarah's arm and ran, the growl growing fierce behind us. We had to find a way out fast. The sound of crashing metal reverberated through the corridor, making my skin crawl. I dragged Sarah behind me, my heart racing with every echoing footstep as we raced away from the source of the noise. We turned a corner, hoping to find a door or a way up, anything to keep us from that growl getting closer. Where do we go? Sarah panted, her breath coming in quick bursts. Just keep moving. I urged, trying to stave off the dread pooling in my stomach. As we passed through the next hallway, I noticed that the walls bore more of those claw-like scratches, more vicious and frenzied than before. My flashlight flickered slightly, and I instinctively tightened my grip. I caught a glimmer of something shiny amidst the shadows. It was a set of keys, glinting on the ground. Wait. I pointed to the keys. What? We don't have time. Sarah said, gripping my arm. I felt a short burst of defiance. If we find a lifeboat, we can get off this ship. We need those. With a quick glance over my shoulder, I darted for the keys, knelt down, and grabbed them. Just as I stood back up, I heard a hiss right behind us, echoing in the confined space. I spun around, flashlight beam shaking as it landed on a creature that stole my breath. It had scales, glistening in the faint light. Its body was elongated and sinewy, with a head that somewhat resembled a lizard but with sharp, jagged teeth protruding from its snarling mouth. Two glowing eyes locked onto mine, filled with a hunger that made my stomach churn. Run! I shouted, the word barely escaping my lips before I took off again, tugging Sarah along. We ran through the next doorway, not knowing where we'd end up. We burst into what looked like a storage room. Boxes stacked against the walls, ropes coiled in neat piles, everything felt chaotic yet oddly abandoned. I shoved the door shut behind us, leaning against it to catch my breath. The thing outside hissed again, scratching against the wood, eager to break in. "Is it gone?" Sarah whispered, her eyes darting to the cracks in the door. "I don't know," I murmured, trying to remain calm. I scanned the room, looking for anything we could use. A lifeboat wasn't going to magically appear. "That has to lead somewhere," I said, pointing to a small door at the back of the room. It was less intimidating and didn't bear the marks we'd seen elsewhere. "If we can just check." Before I could finish, the main door shuddered under the creature's weight, throwing me off balance. "We need to go, now." We rushed toward the small door. I fumbled with the handle, my hands trembling. Just as I turned it, the loud crash of the door gave way, splintering as that monster pushed through. "Go!" I yelled as the door swung open, a new wave of fear propelling us into the unknown. That's when I saw it, a narrow passageway filled with darkness, but far away, I could see faint green lights pulsing like beacons. That had to be our way out. "Don't stop!" Sarah shouted, her voice barely reaching above the racket behind us. The creature lunged forward, and I felt cold air blast against my back. That we plunged into the passage, knowing whatever lay ahead could either be our salvation or our doom. As we sprinted down the passage, the glowing lights ahead drew me closer, a strange allure amidst the fear. It felt like a lifeline, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was a trap, some twisted bait designed to lure us deeper into whatever nightmare this ship had become. "Keep moving," I urged, not daring to look back. The sounds of the creature's clawing and hissing echoed loudly, like a predator stalking us through the dark. The air grew colder as we rushed forward, each step echoing eerily against the metal walls. Sarah stumbled slightly, and for a brief moment, I felt panic surge through me. I turned, my voice softening. "You okay?" "I'm fine," she panted, but I could see the fear in her eyes. I knew I would have to keep pushing her, keep us both going, but uncertainty gnawed at me. We reached the end of the passage, where the green lights illuminated a door. It looked old and rusted, with strange symbols etched into its surface. More of those claw marks lined the edges, each one a reminder of the thing chasing us. "Is this the way out?" Sarah asked, her voice shaky. "Only one way to find out," I replied as I turned the rusted handle. The door creaked open, revealing a small chamber beyond, filled with strange machinery and flickering screens. I cautiously stepped inside, dragging Sarah with me. The room was dim but furnished with rows of buttons and levers, a tight space with an oppressive atmosphere. My instincts screamed caution. "What is this place? Some kind of control room?" Sarah suggested, looking around wide-eyed. I moved toward the nearest screen, the pulsing green lights flickering around us. As I hit a button, the screen came to life. A digital map of the ship appeared in front of us, and my breath caught in my throat when I saw a blinking red dot. It wasn't just us, there were other dots scattered throughout the ship. "Look at this!" I shouted, heart racing. "There are more people here." But as I pointed to the red dots, a new wave of dread hit me. Some were dangerously close to where we'd just come from. They're trapped like us. Before I could fully process it, the echoes of the creature's growl reached us again, closer now. Panic flooded me, the horrifying realization that we weren't just dealing with one monster but an entire ship full of them. "What do we do?" Sarah almost cried, her voice trembling. "Find a way to the lifeboats, and fast." I glanced frantically at the blinking red dots. "There's a lifeboat marked here, but we'll have to move quickly before the others get to us." As I turned to the door, determination fueled my movements. But just as I stepped through the threshold, everything went dark. The lights in the chamber flickered and died, leaving us in pitch blackness. "Did the power just go out?" Sarah whispered, terror creeping into her voice. "No," I replied, stepping backward. "This is something else." A shuffling noise reverberated from behind us, a subtle but unmistakable sound that sent a chill down my spine. We were no longer alone. "Run!" I shouted, and with that, we bolted back through the door, racing into the darkness where the faint glow of the green lights had vanished, leaving only uncertainty in its wake. As we raced through the darkness, my heart pounded in my chest. I couldn't tell if the creature was right behind us or if the darkness itself was alive, wrapping around us like a vice. The echo of our footsteps seemed to bounce off the walls, amplifying our fear. Which way? Sarah's breath came in quick bursts, panic threading through her voice. Just keep running. I'll figure it out. I replied, scanning the walls, searching for any sign of light or hope. The ship's once familiar architecture had turned into an unfamiliar maze. Then, a sudden thought struck me. The controls. Maybe there was a way to regain power or at least find another escape. We need to get back to that control room. I shouted, already turning to retrace our steps that we sprinted back to where the door had been, adrenaline fueling our every move. But as we neared the door, I saw it was slightly ajar. My heart sank. I could hear low growls and snapping jaws from within. Are you crazy? Sarah hissed, pulling at my arm. We can't go back in there. I hesitated, glancing back into the darkness behind us. The sounds grew louder. It was clear we were running out of time. Ignoring my instincts, I pushed the door wide open. The room was still dark, but as I stepped inside, I fumbled to find the control panel. The machine hummed to life, and one screen flickered enough for me to see what had caused me to gasp before. The red dots were pulsating now, some of them converging towards our location. Here. I pointed at the controls, my fingers trembling as I punched buttons in a frantic rhythm. I don't know what I'm doing, but we have to get this power back. The sound of claws scraping against metal echoed closer. The air felt electric with mounting tension as the green lights fought to regain their glow. Come on, come on. I muttered, pressing a sequence of buttons at random. Suddenly, the lights surged back to life. They illuminated a view that sent ice coursing through my veins. One of the screens displayed security footage from inside the ship. I saw more people than I'd ever imagined, all trapped in their own confusion. Some were running, others standing frozen, but there was trouble brewing. Then I noticed something else. A figure was lurking behind them. A creature, tall and monstrous, watching them like prey. Panic erupted in my chest. It was the same thing that had pursued us. We need to move. Now. I shouted as I turned back to Sarah, but I caught a glimpse of another screen before she could respond. It showed a map of the ship, with a flashing red warning. Containment breach detected, the screen read, churning my stomach. Containment? Sarah echoed, her eyes widening. What does that mean? Before I could answer, the door slammed shut behind us, trapping us in the room. The growling grew even louder, echoing through the metal walls. There was no way out but through the horror. Get ready! I exclaimed, my breath hitching as the lights flickered again. Then everything went dark once more except for one thing. I saw something shift in the corner of my eye, a shadow moving closer. It was now or never. Sarah! I yelled, adrenaline systemically pouring through my veins. I felt fear, but I also felt resolution. In that moment, the fight surged within me. It was time to confront what was hunting us. The lights flickered back to life and illuminated the control room just as the door crashed open. I gripped Sarah's arm tightly, bracing myself for the inevitable. The creature loomed at the entrance, its form a nightmarish sculpture of scales and teeth. I swallowed hard, heart pounding like a war drum. Whatever happens, stay close. I shouted, adrenaline surging. With nowhere else to go, I launched myself toward the nearest console, praying for some semblance of control amidst the chaos. I slammed my palms against the buttons, forcing my mind to conjure up any knowledge from my marine biology background that could help. As the control panel illuminated, I detected a series of flashing signals. The map displayed routes that connected us to other sections of the ship. There were still people scattered across, but time was of the essence. Instead of fleeing, I had to navigate a plan that could save as many as possible. "We can redirect power to the lifeboats," I urged. "Do it," Sarah called, anxiety cracking through her voice. My fingers moved instinctively over the controls, a frantic ballet orchestrated by raw desperation. The creature snarled, unmistakably hungry, waiting for us to make a mistake. With a determined push, I activated a series of emergency lights, bathing the room in an eerie glow. They created a distraction, scattering shadows. The growling rumbled deep, and the long, sinewy creature slithered in, its eyes locked on both of us with a predatory hunger. I could see the scales glistening, a grotesque enticing display. I kept my focus on the monitors, rerouting the power as best as I could. "It's now or never," I shouted, knowing we couldn't hold it off forever. Suddenly, I noticed something strange in the map's updated readings. Additional red dots had divided from the main cluster and were closing in on us. "There are more of them," I yelled, panic seeping in. But I fought against it. Focused on survival, I activated a secondary sequence, forcing alarms to ring through the deck. As I held my breath, hoping to free the lifeboats, I sensed movement behind me. The creature lunged forward, and I barely dodged its snapping jaws. A metallic clang echoed as its tail slammed against a console, rattling everything around us. "Echo, move!" Sarah yelled, pulling me to the side. I stumbled but barely managed to refocus on the control panel. "I just need a little more time." In that moment of frenzy, I caught a glimpse outside the control room's windows. In the eerie green light, I saw the dark silhouettes of more creatures thrumming just below the surface, a glimpse of the reality we faced, the truth that whatever this was eluded any rational explanation. It felt supernatural, like a nightmare refused to end. "Sarah, look!" I shouted, pointing outside. "We need to get to those lifeboats now. If we can just survive long enough, I can try to get one of them started." Seeing the turmoil in her eyes fueled me to push harder. "Help me!" I cried, as I occurred to her. "We can get out of this." With a swift hit on the final button, the emergency alarms wailed louder. The lifeboats in the back were finally powered. The lights grew brighter, illuminating an escape route. "Go!" I screamed, leading the way as Sarah followed closely behind. That we dashed through the door, and to my surprise, a few crew members who had managed to stay together were waiting near the exit, confusion mixed with newfound determination in their expressions. "This way!" I directed them, glancing back at the creature still fighting against the flickering lights, barely contained within the chamber. As I sprinted toward the lifeboats, more shadows lurked along the edges of my vision, shapes slithering through the dark waters, scratching at whatever sanity remained. Every instinct screamed at me to turn and run, yet as I reached the lifeboats, I couldn't ignore the feeling that something deeper was at work. I turned back one last time. "Echo!" Sarah yelled. But all I could do was watch, transfixed in horror, as another massive shape broke the surface behind me, towering even greater than the first. It felt as if the ocean had hollowed itself out for centuries. Time seemed to freeze, a reflection of urgency and pressure washing over me. But we had to act. We clambered into the lifeboat while the chaos roared behind us. The pull of the ocean tempted me as if it wanted to take us back. I fought against it. That I still don't know if I was meant to discover what lay beneath or if it was meant to consume us. I managed to get the lifeboat afloat, and as we rowed away desperately, the distant roars echoed in haunting unison. Somewhere behind us, shadows danced beneath the waves, and that gnawing unease now intertwined with unanswered questions. What had we awakened, and would it ever let us forget? As the lights of the Ocean Explorer faded into darkness, I realized I may have escaped, but I would never truly leave the Bermuda Triangle behind.